This week we're continuing our lesson about space and proportion. Let's do a quick review. Do you remember what a form is? A form is a three-dimensional shape that has length, width, and depth. Do you remember what architecture is? Architecture is the art of designing and making buildings. We also learned about Frank Lloyd Wright. Do you remember what he did? He was a famous architect who made some really cool buildings. These are some of the different buildings that he made, which we talked about. Do you remember what space is? Space in art includes the foreground, middle ground, and background. This is another example of space. The plant is in the foreground, the mountains are in the background, and the valley, hillside, and river are in the middle ground. Do you remember what proportion is? Proportion is all about the size relationship between two or more elements in an artwork. For instance, the frog is proportionally much larger than the city that it's sitting on top of. Same for this painting of a giant chick in a field with a farmer. It is proportionally huge. This is an example of both space and proportion. We have a background, a foreground, and a middle ground, and the sheep in front are proportionally larger than the sheep that are further away because they're closer to us. We also practiced drawing 3D shapes last week in preparation for this week's project. Now it's time to do the final thing. We're going to use form to create 3D shapes. This is where your 3D shape practice will come in hand. We'll use space by creating a background and a foreground, and we use proportion by making things in the front of your art bigger and things in the background smaller. I'll show you how I made mine. I started with a horizon line, just a flat horizontal line in the background. I drew a simple shape. I decided to do a rectangular prism. I added a triangle for the roof. I added 3 parallel lines going away from my triangle and square shape. Then I connected them with 2 connecting lines that line up with the front edges of my house. I erased the lines then that I don't want. Then I decided to make another shape just like it, but smaller because it's proportionally further away. I added a triangle for the roof. Same thing, I added 3 parallel lines and then I connected them with 2 connecting lines. I erased the lines that I didn't want. Then I added some details like some windows and a door. Then I added a fence in the front yard because I felt like it. I drew the background, which for me is a mountain landscape. You could do whatever landscape you want for your background. I added some trees in the middle ground. Then I went through with a black fine tip marker, or you could use a pen, and I outlined everything so that I could see it clearly. And then I colored it in.